All right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, as always. I'm Alex Gray, along here with Michael Klein, and we have our very first guest since the return of the podcast. I want to welcome you, Mr. Gabe Wood, to the podcast. Gabe, thank you so much for joining us here today.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, me and Gabe went to UNOH, and we're part of the race club together, so we've known each other for a while. So it's definitely great to have you on, man.
Known each other for too long. Since 2017, yeah, it's way too long.
A little too long. Man, that feels like a few years ago, and it's already been 6. Holy shit.
Yeah, I pitted the ARCA race at Daytona for Jason White. Almost won that damn thing too. But one of the UNOH kids came up to me. He was like, "Hey, Clausing said something about you. You've been at this for a long time." I was like, "Don't you dare say that to me." Don't.
Yeah, you mentioned 2017. I remember that was the same year I had one of my very first credential opportunities. It was the fall when Kentucky had the fall date for Xfinity. ARCA was also there, and I don't remember, but Michael, weren't you actually crewing one of the ARCA teams around that time?
Yes, that was back when I worked for Peterson and when Fox Sports caught my biggest blunder as a pit crew man. So.
No, I find it ironic.
Which there's plenty of them too. So.
I remember that race. That was actually a fun weekend. We did an extended starting part. We had Dick Doheny, who was Andy's right-hand man basically over at Fast Track Racing, and that's who I was with throughout my entire college deal. We were only supposed to run like 10 laps. Well, they all wrecked going into turn 1.
That's right.
It's like, all right, We'll run 10 more laps. Well, I was pitting for Prater, so I had no idea about the plan or all that. My buddy Steven, who was the only other person there, was just going to be run a couple laps, whatever, so we didn't bring everybody. And he was at the pit box next to us, quote-unquote crew chiefing, just he had to be in the box. So we're like, they kept wrecking, and then he kept running, and about 30 laps into the race, Steven taps me on the shoulder. He goes, "Hey, Dick needs you to go fuel him in the garage area." I'm like, okay. So I figured he's, going to come in. We're going to fill the tank full of fuel, and, because ARCA, you got free gas at the big tracks. So I figured we were going to fill the tank and fill the cans back up so we could have some fuel for next week.
Okay.
And put the can in, pull out. I was like, "All right, Dick, you're good." He fires it up, dumps the clutch, and drives back on pit road. I'm like, that's a sporty way going to the garage area. Why is he going back on the racetrack? I walk up to Steve. He's like, "Oh yeah, hey, we're running the whole race." It's like, all right, cool. I think Dick ended up finishing like 15th or something like that.
That is pretty funny.
Back then, that's not too bad for ARCA.
No, and that was he was in. So Dick he's not like a fat guy, but he's like got a dad bod, and he was in Ed Pompa's seat, which Ed is a skinny little guy. He gets out and he was hunched over. It was pretty great.
Man, I can only imagine that would have been like me getting into Justin Peck's seat on my own midget team.
Yeah.
I find it ironic because I just happened to cross paths with you guys, not even noticing. This was a couple years before I even met Michael, which was even more comical, and because I was over in turn 4 of the track taking pictures, and I'm not going to lie, turns 1 and 4 at Kentucky, you can take some really good pictures. I took some really good shots there for a couple of years, so that's and what got you? Let me backtrack for a second. Okay, Gabe, what got you to where you are now? What got you into racing, and what made you fall in love with it?
So, I guess it started. The earliest I remember is like around 2008, because I don't ever remember liking NASCAR during the Gen 4 era, like as a kid. I don't ever remember watching any races, but I remember my mom got a job at Lowe's, and my dad watched NASCAR, and my dad had this little pool together where they would pick 6 drivers or whatever every week, and whoever got the highest average finish at all guys got the money for the week or whatever. So we'd we did that. Well, I got into it because I like Jimmy Johnson because my mom worked at Lowe's, and that was the connection my stupid 10-year-old brain made. So I started watching NASCAR, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. And I started like picking actual putting, I wouldn't say research, but like kind of thinking about the numbers I was picking. I wasn't picking just cars I liked, and started really getting into it. And then, once it became like 13 or 14, a couple years into it, you start actually remembering some of the stuff you hear on TV. And I found out there was a lot more nuance to it. I thought it was really fun. But me and my dad, we would go to Daytona every year. We didn't have much money, but we would go to the Budweiser shootout because you could get tickets for like $80, and you could get infield passes, and you'd get two races because back then they ran the Budweiser shootout, and then they ran the ARCA race before it.
That's right, yeah.
So, hang on a second, cat's messing with the wires. Yeah, I need to get some covers or something for them. But so we'd go down to Daytona, and we'd go to East Bay Raceway in Tampa Bay, or Tampa, go visit my uncle, go watch late model. That's where I fell in love with dirt. And then when I got older, I started going to the racetrack with my buddies who had race cars, started working on them, and it was just kind of a slow transition. And then I started announcing at that short track that we raced at for a couple months. And then it got towards graduating, and I had no idea what I wanted to do. Like, it was one of those deals where I was probably going to end up working with my dad as an electrician or something. And there was a guy that did recruiting for the University of Northwestern Ohio. They came in and did a presentation. And part of the presentation, they showed a bunch of kids working the ARCA race at Daytona. I'm like, well, shoot, that looks cool. Like, I like racing. I've always liked cars. I've worked at the racetracks and stuff like that. That'll be cool. And that's how it happened. I showed up to UNOH January of 2017. And within 4 days was my first class, and I went to the ARCA Race Club meeting, which was where students could volunteer to work for these ARCA teams on the weekend. And I was in that club from day 4 to the last day when I graduated.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I know that I'm still kind of, working more at some of the short track level, but all the opportunities I've gotten in racing have been due to that. So, anybody who is looking to get into this, I would highly recommend, not only UNOH, but the race club in general. Because, I mean, the opportunities it will open up for you is incredible.
Oh, yeah. So the race club, and I had one of my old teammates, his nephew asked me about UNOH and had me explain the whole deal to him. So it feels good that I'm kind of able to direct some people toward that, because I think it's a great school. You get what you get out of it, or you get what you put in, and you have to put forth the effort. And the ARCA Race Club is a really good way to doing that. It's separate from the race team that gets a lot of the advertising budget. It's not the dirt track deal. It's I was going to class Monday through Thursday, and then Thursday night or Friday morning, I was driving to wherever ARCA decided to be. Salem, Indiana, Daytona, Talladega, and we were working, and then we're coming home and going back to class.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I also credit, my experiences there with helping me grow so much as a person. So, there's so many positives with it. And it's like, yes, it's hard. It's definitely hard work. And, you're going to have to make some sacrifices too. But it's like, at the end of the day, if this is what you want to do, it is so worth it to go down that path.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Obviously, I'm more of a media kind of guy, but obviously I can easily tell that stuff like that can go a long ways if you want to really get into NASCAR, or not just NASCAR, motorsports in that sense.
Yeah, which, the funny thing is that now if you were looking to go to college, I feel like this would be a good fit for you, because now they actually have a marketing program within motorsports. And so I'm sure that would probably help you out quite a bit.
And I think the big thing that it helps is, we get a lot of kids from other schools that have a NASCAR program, and it's like I deal with them now on the Xfinity side. Like, we got a couple of kids that showed up, and no discredit to them, but they just don't know what they're doing. I thought it was a joke whenever, somebody told me that, they don't know what an air chuck is, which is, the device, hooks into an airline that put air into a tire. they didn't know what it was. I was like, yeah, whatever. College kids are dumb. Like, no, they've got the knowledge in the back of their head, but they just don't have the real world experience. And UNOH offered that, with the race club. So I felt like it, not a leg up, but it helped the transition from not knowing anything and being green to actually becoming like an actual crew member.
Yeah, because I'm sure what a lot of people don't understand is that, there's a major difference between just working in the shop and actually being there at the track and doing this stuff. And, there's other schools that I'm sure are great, but it's like, where else are you going to get that real world experience that the race club offers?
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're working at the track, I mean, a lot of it is fast paced. I've been in the infield at races enough to know it's so fast paced. Crews are always constantly working on stuff. And you got to talk about pit stops. These pit stops are unbelievably fast. I mean, 10, 11, 12, 13 seconds. It's just to change 4 tires and gas. That's unheard of to people who may not be as familiar with motorsports.
Well, so it's not just the fast pacedness of the deal. It's convincing people that there's a difference between a classroom, and UNOH falls into this as well, a classroom and an actual shop environment. Where if you do something in the classroom and you don't do it right, you get a second chance to do it again.
Right.
But if you're by yourself in the shop and you do something and you don't do it wrong, you could hurt people. That's the biggest thing in racing is there's no part on a race car that is less important than the other. I treat everything like doing a nut and bolt. Like the rear half of the car is my job on the 45 car. And when we come off the dyno and we come off the setup plate, I am underneath that car and you put a wrench on everything just to make sure it's tight. Mm-hmm. Like I've driven to the racetrack or I've flown to the racetrack with a wrench in my pocket or in my bag to check something because I think about it at night. Like, did I check that fuel cable? I did. No, I didn't. I did. But it eats in the back of your head like, I don't want a good run to fall apart because of me. Or I don't want to get someone hurt because of me. So it's somebody asked me a long time ago what it's like to work in racing, and I said, imagine living in constant fear that everything that you know how to do is going to spontaneously explode. And that's the best way I could put it to describe it. Like it's terrifying until the checker flag falls, and it's like, cool, we made it through that race. We finished, 14th or whatever. Hell yeah. Oh, crap, I got to do it all over again.
Right, yeah. You got to do it all over again, right. Yeah, I mean, I think you put that together. I think you summed it up pretty well. I mean, yeah, I could totally get that, to see that from the perspective of a pit crew member.
Yeah, so moving on from working with Fast Track and ARCA, obviously graduate UNOH, go on to work for some Xfinity teams, JD and now Alpha Prime now. So just kind of tell us about that, if you can, like about how some of those came together and what it's been like doing that.
So 2019, I graduated January of 2019. And Andy Hillenberg presented me with an opportunity to work actually in public relations for this for the sponsor that was sponsoring him at the time. And it was going well for a while. We actually won Rookie of the Year with Tommy Bai. It was kind of a default deal, but it was still a cool deal. Tommy was, approaching 50-something years old and won Rookie of the Year in ARCA. Like, how cool is that? But it started to near the end of the year. They're running out of money. They're not paying me. And unfortunately, I was getting to the point where I was like, am I out of the sport? Like, I don't have that many contacts in the next series. I haven't built the relationships that I have now. Like, now I'm pretty comfortable. I could go get a job anywhere. Not anywhere, but a security job. Go find somewhere. But at that point, I was like, am I going to have to stay home? Like, did I just waste 3 years of my life? And that's when I got in contact with Jay Lopez, who's a very good friend of mine, actually one of my better friends. He was getting ready to leave Johnny Davis's. And I'm like, hey, do you know if anybody's hiring? He's like, well, I'm actually getting ready to leave. I can present you as my replacement. And I'm like, dude, that would be awesome. So I get a call from Brian Barry, who's the GM at Johnny's. And he's like, well, when can you start? I said, right after the New Year's. This was Christmas of 2019. And I started after New Year's. And he goes, great, you're hired. You'll make this much. I'm like, heck yeah. And he's like, well, we got a place where you can live at across the street till you get some money saved up. And cool. So I started working. And when I say I was green, I even after 3 years of ARCA, I knew nothing about how to work in a shop. I've had to learn everything. Um, and that was when COVID hit. We went 3 races into the year, and then we all went home for a month and a half. So that was a really weird way to start the year. And sorry, I'm trying to hang up. We had some good runs. I was with Jeffrey Earnhardt, David Starr, Ryan Vargas. We had some good runs. Should have finished 6th at Texas until the gear blew up with 2 laps to go. That was a fun one. Finished top 10 at Daytona last year with Vargas. That was my first ever Xfinity Series top 10, so that was a pretty special moment. And it got toward about October. I was like, I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go somewhere else. So I'd been talking with Tommy Joe Martins. He really wanted me to come over and work with him. Frankie Kerr, who was my crew chief now, he was a crew chief for Marcus Ambrose, bunch of other guys. He worked for Front Row. He's a world-class sprint car driver back in the day. He ran with the World of Outlaws. He ran a lot of USAC stuff, and I'm happy to work with him. Well, he wanted me to come over and do tires for him. So we kind of started throwing, conversations, and finally Vegas of last year, I'm like, all right, let's do it. So right after Phoenix with JD, I told them, I was like, look, I'm not going to work the whole off season because I don't want to do that to you guys. I got a new job. And Johnny shook my hand and hugged my neck and said, if I think it's a good idea, he can't be mad at me. And that was probably the best thing I could have heard at the time, because I really didn't want to leave, but it was just time. So now we're at the new experiment. We're 3 races into my new deal over here at Alpha Prime.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's really interesting to hear, that story from Johnny Davis. It's nice to hear that, it seems like he has the best interest of his employees at heart, and is willing to let them go if, they feel like it's time to move on. And, I definitely imagine that top 10, with Vargas must have been really special.
Yeah, especially after losing the one at Texas. I mean, Jeffrey drove his butt off at Texas. Mm-hmm. And we were passing Alex LeBay for 6th down the front stretch, and the gear caught. That'd be the cat. We were going down the front stretch, and Jeffrey said, "I lost all drive," and the gear just detonated. I that was the first time in racing I've ever sat in the back of a hauler and cried. Like it was that bad, because my crew chief Case had never had a top 10 either, so we were all really dejected. And it was a lot of hard work for 2 years of, getting close. We came back in the spring of the next year and finished 13th. And it was like, man, we're almost there. Had a jack hang up under the car at Charlotte. And we lost 3 laps because it got stuck. And we should have finished about 10th there. So it was just a long road of really tough finishes and hard work. And then just an absolute calamity at Daytona last year, where Jeremy Clemens won. About 20 laps to go, Vargas said he couldn't keep up on the restart. We're like, didn't know what was happening. Like it was like he was running on 7 cylinders, but the engine was running fine. Well, what ended up happening was the throttle rod was backing out, so he was actually only about 90% throttle the entire back half of the race. And I'm like, man, there are 13 cars left in this race, and we're still going to finish outside the top 10. This is how this is going to happen. And we go down the front stretch for the final restart, and Ty Gibbs, whose car was destroyed, started bumping Vargas. And Vargas said he never heard an engine get so angry. That our ECR had never pulled that much RPM down the back straightaway with Ty Gibbs' power pushing us. But we ended up finishing 6th. I mean, we were jumping up and down. You thought we won the damn race. But it was really cool to finally get that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is pretty cool. Obviously, yeah, that summer Xfinity Daytona race last year was completely insane. But for for a team like JD or Alpha Prime, a finish like that is special. And again, it just goes back to the hard work that you guys put in, and to see that pay off, it's definitely got to be a special feeling.
Yeah, and I feel like this year is going to be pretty special. We've already had some really good qualifying efforts. We've had some good races. We've had a little bit of trouble. We built a badass super speedway car. Cesar Baccarella put it, I think, 18th in qualifying, and he had some stomach issues, so he ended up getting out, and Stephen Parsons got in. We ended up getting wrecked very early in the race, had a lot of damage.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen found a lane right in the middle at the end of the race, and we ended up finishing 13th or 12th. I think we ended up finishing 12th or 13th. We went to California. We finished 21st, and that was a really good start to the year, points-wise. And Raj ended up qualifying 16th at Vegas last weekend,
Mm-hmm.
and that was really cool. We fired off really good. He got tight early in the run, and we just kind of never got the track position back. We ended up getting spun out by Joe Graff Jr. That was if anybody's listening, that was the reason Raj spun out in Vegas in turn one. He did not get loose or anything. You can't get these cars loose on the entry to the corner. I'm sorry, but no, he just squared up and hit us. So I'm not really the biggest Joe Graff fan right now. So, but we're trying to get better every week. We got Leland Honeyman in the car this week. He's a rookie, so we kind of have to temper our expectations. But the kid's shown some speed. He's out-qualified Raj at Dover before, so he's got some decent speed. So we should be able to do something with him.
Yeah, that's good to hear. That kid's kind of come out of nowhere from last year, so yeah, definitely looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, yeah, things going pretty well so far this season. I'm kind of curious, since obviously you guys are just about to wrap up on the West Coast swing. What has it been like to work, with the West Coast swing early on in the season when you have those three races out west with Fontana, Vegas, and Phoenix?
It's a living hell.
I bet.
I when I say how tired I am, because a lot of teams stay out west,
Right?
but NASCAR made a rule change at the end of last year where they got rid of the skew in our rear ends, so we ended up having to get new rear ends, rear axle housings, and the supplier was really late getting it to us, so our cars weren't together, so we'd have to fly home and start building the Phoenix car, both West Coast races. And thankfully, they left out last night. But we fly out to California, fly out the morning of, and we had a tech day. Rained all day. Show up for practice and qualifying in the race. Rains all day. Snows.
Yeah.
Raced on Sunday. Flew home, thankfully on a charter flight, so we went right to the airport and flew home. Landed about 7 a.m., showed up at the shop at noon. That's how much sleep I got, about 4 hours of sleep. Worked on the cars for a little bit, flew Frontier out Wednesday to Vegas, which, here's my endorsement for Frontier Airlines. Don't. It's bad. Ran Vegas.
Noted.
Yeah, ran Vegas. Flew home on Frontier. Got home about 6:30. Thankfully, we all just stayed home the Sunday after Vegas, and then get ready to fly out tomorrow, going to Phoenix. So it's rough. Trust me. When people say, "Oh, you work in racing, it must be glamorous," yeah, just do it for a couple weeks. It sucks.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not as easy as people think. One example can be, was it Eddie DeHaan, the spotter, that tweeted made the tweet about oh, yeah, spotting must be easy. And it's just a video of him dealing with the heavy winds at Las Vegas. He's all bundled up you think this is easy now?
Yeah, we had Brandon Lyons spotting for us with Raj, and he was concerned the whole race that Raj couldn't hear him.
Oh, my gosh.
Just because of the wind.
Oh, yeah, I couldn't begin to imagine what that was like. The weather has been just so weird out west lately. Like you said, Fontana had the rain and snow. The Xfinity race got pushed to Sunday, and weather wasn't as much as a factor at Vegas. It was just the fact that it was very windy.
Yeah, it was pretty windy. That made it difficult to set the cars up.
Yeah.
Guys were getting tight in turn 1, loose in turn 3. It was pretty weird. And then we had a sandstorm blow in right before the race, so that was fun. There were hero cars flying everywhere in the garage area. I'm honestly surprised there wasn't a caution for them because our whole hero car stand just fluttered in the breeze.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't see that talked about a lot, but it seems like wind is usually a pretty major factor at Las Vegas.
Yeah, it's a major factor in a lot of places. Daytona's pretty bad too.
Mm.
Yeah, I noticed that. It's kind of something because I've been there for several years now, and it's like you kind of notice it, but you kind of don't. I guess is the best way to put it. But just the constant wind and all that can be a factor during a race. Because
during qualifying, it's bad. If you get a headwind down the back straightaway at Daytona, you can drop 200 RPM. It'll actually sound like the car's flatlining.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the seasoned race fans probably know this, but anybody who doesn't really know racing and know just how aero dependent these cars are would know how much that can impact a car's performance.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, this was my first time going to Daytona, and I guess, come to think of it, that's a good point. I never really realized that until like weeks later. I'm just like, oh yeah, that's a good point with all the wind and everything.
So it's been a rough start to the year, hours wise, but looking forward to it. Actually got a full day off today for the first time in about 2.5 weeks, so at least that's nice. Looking forward to it. We got some decent races coming up. Looking forward to the road courses with Sage, Karam in the car. I believe we're going to have Sage in the car at Atlanta as well, so that'll be fun.
Okay.
Looking for. This is the first time in my career I haven't been grocery racing, and in effect, kind of working with what you got. We're always, at least here, we've got the money to where, we've got some investors, we got some money coming in. We could buy new parts, we could try new things. At Johnny's, unfortunately, and this isn't a knock on Johnny, it's just not an option.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the reality with so many teams.
You're him, especially being in Gaffney, South Carolina, he's so far from parts, he's so far from people, you have to make do with what you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's like I was even looking at, applying at JD Motorsports, and I actually think I did. Didn't hear back, but I was taking a look at Gaffney, and I was thinking, that's got to be just across from North Carolina, right? And I was like, no, it's about
an hour and a half.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah, Michael, I remember that application. I told him not to hire you. So.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, buddy.
That's interesting, though. I didn't realize their shop was that far away from everybody else. That's interesting. Yeah, it's great to see Sage Karam back behind the wheel of an Xfinity car again. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing him on the road courses. I know Coda's coming up. Portland back on the schedule, and of course the Chicago Street Circuit. What are your? I was kind of curious how you looking forward to that later this year.
I'm not. No, literally nobody is. I don't know who made the decision to go there, but it wasn't literally anybody in the garage area.
There's a perfectly fine oval track just across about an hour away.
I don't even care about going to Chicagoland. It'll be. I tell you one thing, it'll be like Portland. It's a fine one-off, which even Portland, God, don't even get me started on that. Can I cuss on here?
Yeah.
I'll censor you.
Absolute shithole. Wow. I'm sorry. Like the Wi-Fi didn't work, so none of us had timing and scoring.
Ooh.
The one camera or the one TV screen across from the pits didn't work. They had to clear out all the homeless people from the racetrack 3 days prior.
Wow, I didn't. Wow.
Yeah, it's just Road America has the same problem. But the track was not built. And if I'm going to go on a rant here, Coda is not built for us. I'm sorry. The garage area is awful. It's built for F1 paddocks, where the garage area is the garage area, underneath the paddock. The infield is such an incline that you can't get a car to sit still.
Yeah, that was something I was honestly curious about.
It's awful. I hate COTA. I'm sorry. Yeah. I hate COTA.
Because it's like, I know that there is such a difference in how they do F1 tracks versus NASCAR tracks. Because it's two totally different series, totally different cars.
The only place that makes it work is Indianapolis. Indianapolis has the front stretch garage, and then you have Gasoline Alley which is like the coolest garage area I've ever been in. I have my own problems with the yellow shirt security people, but like the garage area that's been used for almost 100 years, like that's just cool.
Yeah, I mean everyone there has had their run-ins with the yellow security people.
Yeah, and it's the little things you notice, because like Brad Perez and I did a segment on Mooncar Live about rating racetrack toilets. It's the little things you notice after 5 or 8 years in the sport.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, but that's interesting to hear about Portland, because I know that race, it was raining. That race was a little wild.
God, it was awful.
Yeah, because that was the same weekend that I was in St. Louis for Gateway, the inaugural Cup race there. And I just remember watching that, and I could definitely see what you mean by how, that could be like a one-off ordeal. I didn't realize that Portland and Road America actually had like issues with homeless people being there.
Well, they use the campgrounds and stuff like that, which is fine. It's I hate to say it's where they live, but it's Portland is just, it's not built for us. There's no demographic for us there. I don't know why we're there. Chicago, I see, because NASCAR's trying to build a diversity, demographic. Which, if they can expose us to the inner city demographic stuff and make NASCAR look cool, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
but I just don't think a street race in downtown Chicago is gonna be it. I don't know. I'll be interested, but I just think it's gonna be like Portland. We're gonna tear a lot of stuff up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm completely anticipating that. And also, I just want to say, if you're gonna try to appeal to the inner city people in the sport, then you can't be charging $250 for a general admission ticket.
Yeah. Okay. So while I'm on my rant, let's make this podcast interesting, where Gabe rants at NASCAR. I don't know who made the decision to put rain flaps, lights, and windshield wipers when we go to short tracks, but that's a thing now.
Yeah, it is.
We had to convert. We have to put a windshield wiper. We had to put lights. We have to put and the little mud flaps on a short track car, and hope to God it doesn't rain at Phoenix. I hope it doesn't rain at New Hampshire. That's going to be awful. I don't know who made that decision. I know they're only going to do it when it's damp, but like I don't know. You're required to buy 2 sets of rain tires when you get there. It's just an increased cost.
That just sounds like just such a huge headache, and it's like,
does.
And it's like, is it worth it? And honestly, it sounds like no, it's not.
I'll hold my opinion until it actually rains at a short track and we have to use it. I pray to God it's not this year.
Yeah. I'm concerned for any track this may happen at, other than Martinsville. That's the only place I could possibly see this working, honestly.
We're doing it at Martinsville, Phoenix, Richmond, New Hampshire.
Yeah, see, none of those I don't think it could work at. I think it's just too fast and too high banked, except for New Hampshire, but obviously New Hampshire is a pretty big track. So, for a short track comparison, I mean.
Yeah, that's, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's...
just have to wait and see.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be quite interesting to watch. Obviously, I know the mud flaps were mentioned. It just made me think of the first COTA Cup race when it was raining and nobody could see. I remember, I think it was Cole Custer and Martin Truex Jr. that had that insane wreck. But
that's the reason we have them.
Yeah, that's why I was processing in my mind. So I totally get it. I guess we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. So
the nice thing I can think of though with the bank tracks is that at least there wouldn't at least I would hope there wouldn't be a whole lot of standing water, because I'm hoping it'll be enough that it will just run down the track. But at the same time, you're gonna have the rooster tails and everything like that. So
yeah, like I said, I just don't. My hard card says I don't have an opinion on it. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. All right, so just to kind of move on from that, also you guys may know Gabe from the sim racing community. So it's like, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, about the kind of sim racing you do, what got you into that.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't remember what got me into sim. I think it was just watching, like, this was like 2011, like watching the NASCAR Peak Antifreeze series broadcasts, and I was like, oh, that looks cool. As you can tell, I was a very impressionable child. And I just asked for Christmas one year. My mom got me a Logitech Driving Force GT, and I hooked our laptop up to iRacing. We got a 1 month subscription, and I just started racing on there. And I raced on that laptop for like 3 years. I didn't get an actual gaming computer until I came back from I want to say came back from college, or not came back from college, came back from working. I flew home in the 6 months before when I graduated high school, and when I went to college, I went working with my dad. So I built a gaming computer and kind of really started taking my sim racing seriously once I got into college. I had a stable enough internet. Started racing some leagues. Didn't really take off actually until I got into Xfinity with JD and started meeting some people. Got hooked up with the Monday Night Racing deal, and that's where kind of people knowing me about sim racing has really taken off. It's kind of weird. People come up to me at racetracks, and they're like, "Oh, you're Gabe. You're Gabe." I'm like, "Oh God, no, don't do that, please." But it's kind of cool. I'm focusing on the Lionheart series. They getting ready to start racing sports cars, and they ran a speedway series last year with IndyCar. It's one of the more premier. Excuse me. But they're one of the more premier iRacing open wheel series. I ran with them last year, finished decent in points, fifth in rookie of the year, something like that. Got some sponsors to help me out. Got some sponsors this year to help me out. And then we're going to do Core League on Monday nights. The Core League Summer Series, I guess, is getting ready to get announced soon. So the Core League is actually one of my favorite leagues. It's just the ARCA car with a bunch of influencers and bunch of people in racing, a couple of people in racing like Vargas and Anthony Alfredo, but it's a lot of YouTubers, and there's a big skill gap, and nobody takes it seriously, and that's the way iRacing leagues ought to be.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's kind of the problem with our league. People take it way too seriously.
We've actually got they've got a button from the admins that say, like, if somebody's yelling, they mute them, and it said someone took core too seriously. It's pretty great.
Yeah, I was kind of late to the sim racing game. I didn't start till May of 2021 because at the time they actually came out with like a deal where if you can sign up for a 1-year deal for $20.22 because that was when they released the next gen car. So I was like, well, I got the money. I can just buy a wheel and see what happens. I admit I need to find a little bit more of motivation and energy to do it and find like what I really like to do. I'm really fascinated with driving the LMP2s. I'd like to do, because I know there's an official series of that, and work on my road racing a little bit. But, I mean, in the end, still, sim racing is and should be fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that take it too seriously, but I kind of skip, and I take it too seriously sometimes. But it's when people make me mad about taking it too seriously. I don't know. It's a weird dynamic, but I enjoy it. I enjoy racing a lot with my friends, like Vargas, my old driver Ryan Vargas, and Case Kallenbach. We always get together and do some sort of stupid race, or Vargas throws up Herbie Jetta, which is the Volkswagen Jetta at some dumbass racetrack. Do pack racing at Rockingham or Bristol or something like that. Those are the fun ones. Now I'm interested tonight to try out the ARCA cars because they've made the new Gen 4 package where it's 9,700 RPM limit and 800 horsepower. So I like that. I like that a lot.
Oh yeah, I can't wait to try that out. I may have to hop in some races after our Elite Cup race tonight.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that out at some point, and I've always wanted to do. You were talking about the goofy stuff. I definitely want to try stuff like that. Like, I would love to take like the LMP2s on like an oval track or something like that and see what happens, or just do goofy things.
I tell you, the best car track combination is the Pro 2 light trucks at any crappy infield road course at any NASCAR track.
Really?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Texas Motor Speedway, infield road course, California, Kansas, because it literally just goes back up into banking and back down.
Yep.
The old Charlotte Roval.
Gateway. I know they have a road course on there.
Those are probably the best combinations I've ever seen.
Yeah, I may have to do some test laps in that and maybe find some random hosted races to do that in. It sounds fun. I don't do the Pro 2 trucks on there, or the trucks, for that matter, a whole lot anymore, but I definitely need to get back into it.
Yeah, I've only done testing with the off-road trucks, but I've just never gotten a good handling of them.
It's when we ran Monday Night Racing, we did the Pro 2 trucks at Watkins Glen, and it's a weird feeling. You trail brake in those like you would a stock car, and then you have to baby the throttle like it's front wheel drive. It's weird, but when you get it right, it's such a satisfying car to race. Plus, the moment you get sideways, you're completely screwed. The tires heat up and you're done.
Oh yeah, I'd imagine that's a huge issue because it's like I know a lot of people use that for like the Stadium Super Truck series, but they're not built as the Stadium Super Trucks. So
right,
they're built with dirt tires, and you're throwing them on asphalt. So it's like, yeah, there's gonna be a lot of wear on that.
Yeah.
All right, Alex, was there anything else you wanted to ask Gabe?
I guess one thing I wanted to quickly bring up, obviously, some quick news and maybe get Gabe's thoughts on it. Obviously, we know about Chase Elliott. He's going to be out for a while with the fractured tibia. Josh Berry's going to be continuing to drive the oval races. Jordan Taylor is going to be running at COTA and potentially some other road courses if he's needed. Speaking of COTA, Connor Daly also got confirmed to return with the money team, and the Iceman, Kimi Räikkönen, he's going to be running with Project 91, so it's really cool to see that his Cup ordeal wasn't a one and done, and honestly just wanted to get some thoughts on the whole Elliott situation, and I feel like I talked about it last fall, but I feel like we're getting a second coming of the open wheel invasion that we had in like the late 2000s with a lot of these international road course drivers trying out NASCAR.
I think personally that stepping back from the open wheel invasion thing, but talking about the Elliott deal, I think the waiver deal is so stupid when it comes to announcing that you're a full-time driver. Like, you miss some races. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, if you can stay in the top 20 in points or whatever in points after you come back, congratulations, you still made the chase. Or you still made the playoffs, whatever the hell they call it now. I think having to request a waiver because you missed it or something, it's stupid. The way I think it was Michael Annett got denied for one whenever he had to step out of the car for a couple of races.
Yeah.
And I honestly I don't know. I think there shouldn't be even a waiver deal. It's just if you can make it in on points in the cutoff and you have a win, congratulations, you made the playoffs. It shouldn't have to be an asking permission type deal. But the open wheel invasion thing, I think this honestly started at the end of the COVID break. not with the open wheel guys, but you had guys coming back that you hadn't heard of in years.
Mm-hmm.
You had Bill Lester and Eric Darnell coming back. You had guys who, with the light practice and the light qualifying deal, they were just, they were not going to say guaranteed, but there wasn't as big of a load. There wasn't as big of a monetary deal. You're saving $6,000, $10,000 on tires to go practice. I think it invited a couple of guys back. You had what was it, Dexter Stacy come back.
Yeah.
Even this week, who's driving the –66 car?
Brian Weber.
Brian Weber. He hasn't made a start since 2003. It's an interesting dynamic, and then you get the open wheel guys. You get guys like Connor Daly. You get Sage Karam. Sage Karam is making a full NASCAR career out of what he's got over here. I've even heard, I'm friends with Stephen Wilson, Justin Wilson, the late Justin Wilson's brother.
Mm-hmm.
We were joking around with him about, when we ran Monday night together, he would always hang out in our Discord. Me and Case were like, hey, if you ever want to come over, we'll build a car for you. And he's like, dude, let's do it.
Oh.
They all want to do it.
Oh, nice.
And
That's awesome.
This wasn't like a shake hand agreement or anything. This was kind of joking, but
right.
They all want to do it. They all just want to dip their fingers in it.
Stephen Wilson NASCAR debut announcement.
Yeah. But you had all these guys. You had James Davidson.
Yeah.
Making it was almost a full year out of running for Rick Ware.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of guys. They're starting to see, with all the mainstream stuff, the social media and stuff. It's, I hate to say it, they're using it, but it's an interesting way to get back into the limelight. Like, hey, my open wheel career is kind of over, and Kimmy, he's retired, so he doesn't really have anything to do. Let's get some social media out of this. Let's get some follows. Let's get some engagement out of this. Let's go run NASCAR.
Yeah, Kimi Räikkönen is the one driver I feel like who would do this just because he's bored.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love about what Trackhouse is doing with Project 91. It's this concept of saying, hey, we're going to have this third car to have all sorts of different guys, from all over, try NASCAR. When we're seeing this with Räikkönen, who knows who else could step into that 91 car. I'm really intrigued to see. I know there was talks about Elio Castroneves doing it. Marco Andretti, he ran an Xfinity race last year. Daniel Kvyat ran a couple cup races on road courses last year. Saw him make his debut at Indy. So honestly, it's really cool to see all these different drivers come into NASCAR and giving it a shot too.
And I think it's cool to see guys branching out of NASCAR. Mm-hmm. And like Kyle Larson saying he's going to run the Indy 500. It's guys aren't locked down by their series anymore. You face that a little bit with Formula One just because of their grueling schedule. A lot of those guys, they just don't have time.
Right.
But the IndyCar guys, Marco Andretti, he comes over and they want to try something new. And I think that's the age of what we're in is guys going, screw it, I want to try it.
Yeah.
And you even had Travis Pastrana coming back and going, before I'm done driving, I want to run the 500. And he makes it in. He runs the 500. He almost had a shot at the top 10 until the last wreck. But it's just, and that was another one where running for Nice of guys that, had NASCAR careers and then came back.
Yeah.
I almost wouldn't expect Colin Braun or Chad McCumbee to come back at some point.
I would love to see Colin Braun come back.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Todd Bodine. You had Todd Bodine come back.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean...
But I think, especially with the trucks package is less grueling. The schedule is less grueling, so there's openings in the schedule. And
yeah.
A lot of those teams, they're opening up extra cars. They have time to prepare them. Like with the 45 that Darnell and Bill Lester and all those guys ran with.
Yeah, Lester, I think, drove for Gilliland.
Yeah.
Did he? I thought he drove for Nice.
Yeah, he actually drove the 17 truck.
Yeah, that's right. But, we had Bill Lester on our podcast a couple times in the past, and obviously he got to talk about that. That was like his first truck start since 2007, and him just talking about, how much of a fun experience that was for him. Yes, it was with David Gillen Racing.
Yeah, and like guys like Bill Lester, I admire him, and I'm drawing a blank. Ran SRX last year.
Oh,
A lot of guys ran SRX last year, so let me
Willie
think here.
Willie T.
Willie T.
I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Guys like Willie T. They strive to get into NASCAR, to have a career. Willie's NASCAR career didn't work out, but he ended up making it in Trans Am, which he's probably one of the most badass Trans Am drivers I've ever seen from looking back at races. But Bill Lester, what showed me was him qualifying that Bill Davis car in Atlanta. That's probably one of the coolest videos ever, is him just going out and balls to the wall trying to make that race. And he ended up making it. But Bill was a great qualifier to begin with. Like, he was one of those guys where he would put it in the top 10 the entire season.
Mm-hmm. Fun story.
Oh, yeah.
I was there as a kid that night. I was at Atlanta that weekend, and I saw Bill Lester qualify, which I absolutely just love that story, and I love talking to him about it.
Say if you don't ever get a chance to watch Willie T's documentary, that's airplane viewing material.
Oh yeah, I watched it. It was really good. I loved hearing
all about his career. To hear him talking about on his last lap, where either I'm putting this car into the race or you're going to have to scrape me off a wall. That's just no matter who you are, that's passion for what you do. And going back to the early conversation about working in racing, you have to have a passion for this stuff. You can't just be lackadaisical about it. You have to, and that goes back to, there's not one part on this car that's less important. And I hope, we got some kids from NTI and some different schools, and I hope we can beat that into them, because right now I'm working in racing. Yeah, congratulations, you're working in racing. So it was like a lot of people before you, and so the worst thing you can be called in racing is a non-racing MF. That's just talking about somebody that doesn't have it. It's weird. You don't have the ability to work in this environment. And luckily, I think I've adapted pretty well, and I've made myself a career out of it. And I've met a lot of cool people, and that all started with guys like Michael back at UNOH. There's the thing that I miss the most is the team van rides to and from the racetracks at UNOH, or finding out whose car had enough room.
Yeah, I'm sure that was good.
Quick story before I go. I got to meet up with some people, but quick story. We were coming back from Kentucky, talking about Kentucky. We ran Kentucky, and it was the middle of the night, and we were in Josh Wentz. Mike, you remember Josh?
Yep.
Josh Wentz's mom's van with Colin Stevens, who is now pseudo car chief over at the 13 car for Haley Deegan. He was on Ben Rhodes' championship truck, and I forget who else was in it. But I fell asleep about 2 miles outside of Lima. That's how tired we were. And put two wheels off. Somebody screams and Josh is in the back of the van, and he goes, what are you doing? And I had four wheels off in the gravel and hooked the wheel to the left, almost flipped this poor van.
Oh my gosh.
And
wow.
Josh's father is handicapped, so I'm on the brakes and on the handicap brake on the steering wheel as well, trying to get this thing to stop, and we're facing backwards in the middle of the highway at 4 o'clock in the morning, and all of us just look at each other and start laughing.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
It was just stuff like that. Oh, and I had stopped at a rest stop to get James Harmon. That's who was in the passenger seat. James Harmon. He was a very, very, very big gentleman.
Oh yeah.
But we had stopped at a rest stop a couple miles before, and I had picked up 2 Krispy Kreme donuts. And the first thing, James, we're not even pointed the right direction yet, and James is screaming at me, "You just had to get your damn Krispy Kreme donuts," and we're all laughing. I'm like, "Guys, I see headlights." So we whipped it around, and we all turn around to Josh and go, "Not a word to your mother."
Oh man, I've never heard that story. That's hilarious.
Oh my gosh. You know, as my dad tells me, sometimes you gotta find humor in a dark place.
Yeah. Yeah, so Gabe, we know you've got places to be. You got people to meet up with. So we'll let you go, but thank you so much for coming on. We really appreciate it.
I didn't mean to not talk there. My wheel came unplugged again, so I couldn't talk. But no, I appreciate you guys having me on. This was fun. I was reliving some stories and talking about. I just met up with Michael at Daytona. I told him how proud I was of him, seeing where he's gone and see how he's actually. He wanted to be. When I met him, he was just running go-karts, and now was it second full-time season running midgets?
Yeah. It's gonna be a crazy year. We got midgets, we got street stocks. Making my pro late model debut here soon, provided everything goes good.
Yeah, with John Pittman. It's funny. You talk because we're John Pittman. I was actually supposed to spot for him last year at the the icebreaker.
Nice.
Or not the icebreaker, it was the Thanksgiving race at Hickory.
All right.
But he ended up not going. But it was just funny. That's funny.
Yeah, it's crazy. I know he bought Moonhead's old Pro Late model, and he texted me a few weeks ago just saying, "Hey, we're going to be heading to Hickory. Do you want to drive?" And he gave me a price, and it was actually something I could afford. And I was like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it.
Heck yeah,
but unfortunately, the Hickory thing didn't really work out because it was just a little bit too short notice. So he said, "Let's try Dillon instead." And I was like, "Okay, yeah, we'll do that."
Well, congratulations, buddy. I hope it works out for you. I hope you do well.
Thanks. I'm supposed to head down to the shop here at some point soon to get fitted in. So hopefully we'll learn more there. I just got the last little bit of money that I need for that. So we should be all good to go.
Heck yeah, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It really meant a lot having you come up to me and just say how proud you were. I mean, that really meant a lot to me. I don't know if I told you that.
Yeah, well, I just I love seeing all the guys from UNOH, succeeding. James is succeeding in his own deal. He's not even in the sport of stock car racing anymore, but he's succeeding. Looking at my old roommates I went to college with, they're all succeeding at their different careers in automotive. It's kind of cool just because we were all kids when we started out.
Oh, yeah. And, I know I may not be working in NASCAR or anything right now. I did have the opportunity to do that last year, but it was kind of clear to me it wasn't really a great deal, which I'm not going to say who it was, but I will just say I was right to listen to my instinct because the team is no longer around. Or at least the team I would be working on was no longer around. And then the driving opportunities really started to come back up. And so it was definitely a case where it's like, okay, I think I made the right choice here. But, I'm happy with what I'm doing. And really, that's all you need to do in life is just be happy with what you're doing. So,
yeah, exactly. I mean, if you really enjoy doing what you do, you never have to work a single day in your life.
That's the biggest thing. Well, guys, I really appreciate you guys having me on. This was a cool deal. Like I said, I hadn't done a podcast in a couple of years, and just to sit here and talk about old racing stories with an old classmate it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us, man. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys.
All right. See you later, man.
Yep. Take care, Gabe.
Thank you.
And that will wrap things up for this episode. This was an extremely fun episode of the Dropping the Hammer Racing Hour. Thank you guys so much. You can check this podcast out on the YouTube channel, Gray Speed Productions. You can also check it out on Spotify. Thank you guys so much for all your support, and we'll see you next time.